Hi, I'm Dr. Nolan Gasser, and for those of you who have seen my recent video, The Wisdom of the Pond, you might be wondering, how did I do it? Now, if you haven't seen it, you should stop this video now and go watch it by clicking on the link below, and then come back here to watch this video. I'll wait.
A few moments later.
Okay, as is stated at the onset of The Wisdom of the Pond, this is a collaboration between AI and human creativity, specifically my creativity, but also that of my friend and frequent social media collaborator, a very talented young man named Malcolm McDuffie, who you'll meet and be hearing from very soon. Now, the AI technology used in the video comes from a variety of sources. Some of you probably have heard of, and some you haven't. We'll get into all that in a second. But first, AI is clearly a big and controversial topic. So let me say a few words about what inspired this project in the first place, and some more general thoughts about AI and its impact on the creative process. Now, I'm by no means a super technical guy. I couldn't code my way out of a paper bag. But I have been working with and studying AI now for a while, and certainly since the big open AI Chat GPT revolution at the end of 2022. Most of all, I made a commitment to myself to learn as much about music AI as I could, which I'm now putting into action on a couple of different and exciting projects. I'll have more to say about that at a different time. Now, I want to say very clearly that this project makes absolutely no use of music AI, since that was decidedly not the point of the project. My inspiration for this was fairly simple: to use text, voice, and visual AI tools to enable me to write and record a musical score on the piano, and then to turn that into a video like the one you saw in The Wisdom of the Pond. My first task, of course, was to get a story written. Now, after some thinking, I decided for something simple, like a children's fairy tale or a parable. Something with a nice message or moral that can speak to kids and adults alike. Now, there are several AI models out there that can generate a good story. That's why it's called generative AI, because it can generate text. Not only Chat GPT, there's also Gemini from Google, Meta AI from Meta, and Claude from Anthropic, among others. Now, all of these are amazingly impressive, and each can brag about its unique strengths and advantages compared to the others, such as how it handles creative tasks like writing a poem, or a technical task like writing a Python script. So depending on your use case, you may ultimately prefer one or the other for given tasks, assuming that you have the time to compare them. Now, of course, ChatGPT has a huge advantage in that it got way out in front of the others in terms of popular awareness and accessibility. Certainly, that's the one that I started using first, and I quickly subscribed at the professional level. It's $20 a month, which ensures that I'm getting the latest version and better functionality than the free version. And this is something I really highly recommend for everybody, even if you aren't experienced with using generative AI. Although I have used all of the four models I mentioned earlier, the two I've worked with most closely are ChatGPT and Gemini. The latter more for business purposes, the former more for personal purposes, like getting background on the Civil War, or getting tips on how to grill an artichoke, or help in writing a creative story. Now, no doubt there's a bit of familiarity bias going on my part. I'm much more familiar with ChatGPT on that kind of task, but that's also the advantage of being first to market. At any rate, I did decide to use ChatGPT both for the creation of the text of the story and for the basic images used to accompany it. This is created by OpenAI's dall-e, that's DALL-E model, that's now incorporated into the ChatGPT interface. Now, Gemini from Google also has text-to-image capability, but I admittedly haven't used that as much in terms of a generative usage, and so that may change in the future. Okay. To get started, I sat down with Chat GPT and began to experiment with prompting it to create a story. The key notion here is the prompt. How exactly you ask the model to carry out a task you want. For simple things like asking how to grill an artichoke, it probably doesn't make that much of a difference in how you prompt. But for more complex things like asking it to construct a story, the prompt makes all the difference. There's an old saying that writing is rewriting. Well, likewise, prompting is re-prompting. To get the response you really want, you'll often need to rephrase what you're looking for, giving the model feedback on why its initial response was lacking. Sometimes you even need to get firm and a bit scolding if it's not giving you what you want, which actually does work. Sometimes I've been pretty cruel telling it that humanity will come to an end if it doesn't do what I'm looking for. Prompting is such an important skill that there are people that have dedicated their energy and their business to creating insight. For example, my friend David Boyle has launched a whole set of books on the subject of prompting, on podcasts, on fashion, on startups, on movies and TV. And that latter one I actually contributed a bit to. All right, so I've been working, in other words, on my prompting skills for a while, and I've gotten pretty good at them. I still often need to prompt and re-prompt what I'm looking for, but now I have enough experience that I'm not too frustrated when I don't get what I'm looking for right away. So as I said, I started by prompting ChatGPT to write a short story. After a few less than ideal responses, I refined the prompt to this one. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you can pause the video if you'd like to do so. What's important to note is that I tried to be very specific about the characters, the intent, the style, and the scope of the story, which I defined as the first episode of a larger collection, and then I let ChatGPT do its thing. What came back, amazingly, was largely the story that you see in the video, with a few small tweaks from me. Again, it's a collaboration. In short, I was very impressed by what ChatGPT came up with. The story was sweet, concise, suitably poetic without being too flowery. That's one of my prompts. And most importantly, it accomplished the main goals I laid out in my prompt: to establish Carson and his dog Louie as lovable and at least somewhat fleshed out characters, and most importantly, this story, which I titled, ChatGPT it could have, but I gave it the title, The Wisdom of the Pond, that it deliver a thoughtful and valuable lesson that sometimes we learn most when we don't get the results that we're expecting or that we're looking for. Or as Mick Jagger might put it, if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need. Okay, so I had my story. Short, sweet, coherent. Next, I needed some images. Again, I was looking to have a platform for which I could add a musical score. I could have made this a purely audible project, but of course, that's less compelling than one with visuals. And I initially thought that a set of images would be good enough. I would soon learn that we can do more with AI, but I'll come back to that soon. So, how to create these images? Now again, generative AI is not only able to generate impressive text, but also images, and increasingly video, as we'll see. Though we're not quite as advanced with creating video as we are with text and even images. We're still early in that revolution. The integration of dall-e into Chat GPT, as I noted, made it an easy model to use for this task. Indeed, I asked it to create the images within the same chat or conversation that I had started creating the story. So it had all the information and material in its short-term contextual memory, which is another amazing part of generative AI. One of the most impressive aspects of these AI models. They can retain, up to a point, the thread of your full conversations. Even if you go into various tangents or different directions, it will remember what you've talked about previously and use it to inform your continuing conversation. And indeed, I often talk about having a conversation with Chat GPT. Sometimes my wife gets a little annoyed by that or rolls her eyes, but I think it's pretty cool. And so when I asked Chat GPT or dall-e to create images of the story of Carson and Louie, it remembered my prompt and the story it created as part of its generative image making. And just as getting the story right took some prompting and reprompting, so too did the generation of good images. Indeed, quite a bit more so. dall-e's ability to generate interesting images from text is obviously quite complex and remarkable, but stems from the same predictive modeling as text generation, trying to figure out which pixel to add next based on lots of training of text-to-image pairing. Now, given the concerns about copyright, you can't say, for example, create images in the style of Picasso or Norman Rockwell, but instead you need to do so via pure description, like the images should be whimsical but not cartoonish. I then gave it a passage from the story to illustrate, at times trying 2 or 3 different times with slight adjustments in the prompt to get what made sense to me. Now, one of the first challenges I recognized, as you likely did too, is that each version of Carson and Louie, along with their environment, is quite different in style. Each Carson and Louie look completely different. Can't they just look the same? While we might naturally expect a Pixar-like continuity in the animation style, we have to remember at this point in text-to-image AI technology, at least as far as I know, each image is created sui generis, basically as a unique thing from scratch, predicting from nothing what that next pixel will be. It will be interesting to see how this might change in subsequent episodes of the adventures of Carson and Louie. All right, so after a lot of prompting and comparing and choosing images, we had our story and a set of accompanying images. I was thus nearly ready to start composing. The last thing before that was to create the actual video and the story and images presented temporally, since naturally a score has to accompany a temporal, in other words, moving in time narrative. Now for that, we needed to record the story, which happily can also be done by AI. I actually already have some pretty good experience using AI voiceover as a temporary voice, for example, for my upcoming PBS special called Why You Like It, which is coming out in November, so stay tuned for that. Now, the company that I've used is called 11 Labs, which has a whole roster of voices, male, female, American, British, sweet, silly, and so forth, which you can test out with the text that you submit. I use the voice of Lily with a melodious but not too eccentric British voice as my narrator, which I think suits the story quite well. Obviously, I can't direct Lily. I can't tell her to slow down here or to emphasize this word or change the inflection of a given phrase. And yet, the automated way in which she speaks this AI-generated text is actually quite good, I think. All right, now, I am by no means an expert in video editing, but I do have enough skills in the video program Premiere Pro to assemble the parts and pieces, the AI voice, the images, to create the movie that I could musically score. All right, so I did that, and I had also the timeline with the voice and the text, and then I could actually begin my human creative process of composing a score that would fit this story and the images as well. I'm not going to go into all of the details of that. That can be maybe perhaps a different video. But I did decide to make it for solo piano. Obviously, the score tries to sort of respond to the emotion of the story, some of the actual thematic elements, creating some recurring themes and all of that. It was a lot of fun. So once I had composed the score, and then, as I said, recorded it with the camera above looking down on my hands on the keyboard, I was able to go back to Premiere Pro and put the music, obviously, with the video of my hands on the keyboard into the movie. And then I sent it off to my collaborator, Malcolm, to help me finish up and polish it up and to finish the video and get it ready to post on social media. But in fact, that wasn't the end of the production or the use of AI. I wasn't too hip to the latest AI tools to animate images. I knew that they existed, but I had never used them. But Malcolm had used them and was a little bit aware of their potential, and he wanted to experiment with that to make it look a little bit more like a movie, to take those still images and animate them. It's really incredible that the technology can do that, to bring those images of Carson and Louie to life. Now, to explain how that was done and the technology and the software used, let's pass it over to Malcolm.
I think the hardest part about working with generative video is still just the various limitations of the models. So we use the Luma Labs Dream Machine, which overall is a very amazing model and very impressive results, but they only generate in 5-second intervals, which gives you a bit of a challenge as a director because some of the shots you want to see or that you're imagining are longer than 5 seconds, especially to have them go from point A to point B. And Dream Machine has one workaround for this where they'll let you start from the last generated frame and generate a fresh 5 seconds on top of that. But I found that when you extended the prompt 5 seconds and 5 seconds longer and longer, it just gets more and more chaotic. So what I found worked best was keeping things really simple and making sure that the image prompt was the proper starting point frame for the video. For instance, if I want Carl and Louie to come from the background to the foreground, then I have to make sure that the image I'm prompting has them starting in the background. The image has them in the foreground, and I'm asking the AI to bring them from the background up. It's not really able to do that. The AI also struggles with some of the more delicate details. For instance, Louie is a four-legged creature, and Carson is riding a bike. So most of the time when I had them next to each other, Carson riding the bike, and then Louie would slowly start morphing until he was sitting on his own little furry bike, which I thought was really funny, but definitely is very noticeable limitation of the current model. The other main limitation that most of the models are having is this morphing problem. So to get Carson's face, we found it really hard to get Carson's face to stay in the same stylistic animation across shots and across frames. So I think for next time, the keys to success will be like direct the whole thing in 5-second intervals and just plan simple 5-second movements. I think if we can do that, we'll have good results. I also use another tool called Immersity AI, which isn't exactly a video generator, but sort of a motion generator. So you can control like panning or tilting or just moving across an axis around the subject. If you try to do crazy things with it, it doesn't yield good results. But for really simple stuff like with the frog, just sort of panning upwards and seeing him like a hero image, it was so effective.
So that's the behind the scenes for the Wisdom of the Pond AI human collaboration. Now, I know there's a lot of hand-wringing about AI these days, as well as a lot of intimidation, and I get it. But if you ask me, The fears that AI is going to take away all of our jobs and ruin us of our creativity is really completely misplaced. All new technology always brings addition as well as subtraction. But one thing is certain. AI is not going anywhere. In fact, it's only going to get more and more integrated into our lives. And so we might as well dig in and get our hands dirty. I know that I did with this project, and I had a blast doing it. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you again soon. Cheers.